With that, good morning, State Representative Susan Lynn.
Hi there, good morning. And yeah, I see Ray Render. Thank you, Ray, for being here. He's our federal government counterpart, and I'll tell you, Ray Render is amazingly helpful. So many times the constituent will call me and it's actually a federal issue. And when I put it, all I have to do is do the handoff. I hand them to Ray and Ray makes it happen. So I love that.
We hand some to you too, and thank you,
And
Susan.
we do, you hand them to me too. We do that with our local government, I think Ray Justice might be on here, I'm not sure. But Mayor Hutto, I'll hand folks to them and make sure they get connected and they take care of things. But I'll just start at the beginning just real quick. My name is Susan Lynn. I'm State Representative for the 57th District, and I serve you at the Tennessee General Assembly. So that means I work with the State Senate and the State House and under the governor, with the governor. And so we vote for you in Nashville. And so we vote on state laws. Ray's boss, Ray Render's boss, John Rose, he is our federal representative. So he's our U.S. representative. And then, of course, we have two U.S. senators who also represent us. And we have a contest right now to find out who our next U.S. senator will be. So that ends on Thursday. That's exciting. But that's what we do. We in the State House, what we do is we vote on the state budget. We vote on laws. And we try to help the people who live in our district. And that is the majority, really, I feel like, of what I do. Even though I do serve you also as chairman of the House Finance, Ways and Means Committee, and I'm proud to say I'm the first woman ever to hold that position in the state of Tennessee. And it's a very challenging position, and I do appreciate the speaker for the opportunity to serve in that way. And then also I have a real job. I have a real job right here in Mount Juliet. I'm right down the road. If you're familiar with the Toddy and Foster buildings, I spend most of my day when we're not in session in the Foster building up on the second floor. I work for a local businessman, and he is an amazing entrepreneur. He's got 30 businesses, and I'm his company controller, so I keep all that in line too. So it's always very exciting and very interesting. And then, of course, I think my husband's on the call, Michael Lynn. And we own a farmers insurance agency, and that's uptown. That's way uptown. So he is on the phone call. So that's way uptown. And there were a few things I wanted to talk about. As you know, the tax collections that came in for Mount Juliet were very, very good. And so that really helps Mount Juliet with their budget. And with the state, the tax collections were not as bad as we feared, so that is good. Right now, there are some lawsuits going, but there's always lawsuits going on with the state of Tennessee. Someone's always suing. But three high-profile lawsuits have to do with voting. We are being sued by individuals who want us to expand mail-in voting. And so two of these lawsuits are in state court, one is in federal court. And we got a real difficult judge on our first go around with one of the lawsuits. And so that had to go on then to a higher court. Arguments were made last Thursday in one of the lawsuits. That's a real important lawsuit. And we are hoping that Tennessee will win this. But what they want is to force Tennessee, and this has not been the choice of the General Assembly. They want to force the law to say that we will mail ballots to every single voter on the voter rolls. I can tell you, I've been knocking on doors for a long time. I mean, I am someone, I literally go out and knock on doors and talk to people. And there were so many people who, they move. You knock on the door, you're looking for a voter, they're not there. They're deceased, and the voter rolls just haven't caught up with that. Many different situations. It's hard to even name all of them. And so to just mail out ballots wholesale would be a terrible risk that someone else could get that ballot and fill that out for that voter. Even husbands and wives. There have been situations in other states where the husband and wife don't vote the same. And the husband, in this case, filled out the wife's ballot and sent it in. And she thought she didn't get a ballot. And then she discovered that it had been filled out for her. And of course, her husband eventually confessed and that he had voted for her and sent it in. So her vote was taken. And that can happen many times. So we're fighting these lawsuits vigorously. The lawsuits actually go to our Secretary of State because he's in charge of voting in the state of Tennessee. We have an absentee ballot voting system, and it is a good system. If you cannot be here during the voting window, you can request an absentee ballot, and then there is assurance that that voter has requested it and that voter will receive it. And so that is a very good and safe system. And I don't feel the system needs to be expanded to just willy-nilly mail out ballots in bulk to people who won't even be at that address. They won't even be there. And someone else may take their ballot and steal their vote, which would be terrible. Another thing we have going on right now is last weekend we had our sales tax holiday for schools, and this weekend we have our sales tax holiday for restaurants. So we expanded it this year, and I know it's a crazy year to expand it, right? We don't expect tax revenues to be that great, but we did feel that we needed to help our local businesses in some way. So please note for you and your family, there is a sales tax holiday at restaurants this weekend. You can dine and not have to pay the sales tax on your meal. And it is intended to help our local restaurants. And we all know how much they need it. And we've been trying to help them as much as we can on Facebook and promote them. And, you know, please, Michael started a Facebook page, Mount Juliet, today so that they can post and just really try to help everybody. And it's been a lot of fun getting to know all these folks. I don't know if you know this, but the state of Tennessee has decided to use $200 million of the COVID relief money for relief for businesses. And so if you are a business and you are registered in TNTAP, that is the tax payment system. You pay your franchise and excise tax, your sales tax, or your business tax, or any other number of taxes. The state of Tennessee, you don't have to do anything to qualify for it. You just have to have been open within the window of this program. The state of Tennessee will be sending you, or maybe you've already received it. I'm not sure how fast the checks are going out, but they will be sending you a relief check of, I think it's about $2,000 if your business is on there. And that's also intended to help our businesses. As I've already noted, unemployment has been just really overwhelmed. We included in this year's budget about $47 million to develop a new unemployment system. The unemployment system is very antiquated. It's been held together for a long time and spent in baling wire. And you know, you all run businesses, and you know when you've got those offline spreadsheets going on. I mean, just for me with what I do, I have like, I must have 12 offline spreadsheets because our computer program doesn't encompass everything I need. Well, the old system is very similar that way, and so it takes a long time to get people the service that they deserve. And so if you know of anybody with any issues, let me tell you a shortcut, call my office. We have legislative liaisons for every single department. The Department of Labor hired 30 extra legislative liaisons. They are the liaison between the State Department and the legislature. So when our constituents call and they need help, I cut through the red tape. I just call that person. They are excellent at what they do. They work so hard. So if you need that kind of help, call the office. Every day people do call the office, but I am amazed. I actually received a letter at home the other day from a fellow out in Lebanon. He had been laid off about 6-7 weeks ago. It could not, you know, the unemployment system just wasn't working for him. He kept writing down, please call me. No one was calling. So he wrote me a letter. He sent me a picture of his family. It was a very long letter. And I just called him and I said, as soon as I got it, I called him and I said, oh, sir, you didn't need to send me a letter. And I so appreciate the picture of your beautiful family, but we're going to help you tomorrow. And so we got him hooked up, and he's in marketing, by the way. He used to work for Tennessee Lottery and did marketing. So if you need anybody in marketing, he's looking for a job. And then I want to talk a little bit about students with disabilities. There has been, during this COVID crisis, students with disabilities have really been, shortchanged all over the state, and it is harder. It's much harder to get them the services they need. What kind of services do they need? Oftentimes they need speech therapy. They need occupational therapy. They need other therapies, and these therapies are provided through the school system. It is federal funds that funds the program to provide these programs for these students, and they need these services very, very much. I was in touch the other day with a father of a 3-year-old who needs speech therapy and occupational therapy, and the school system was providing that up until COVID happened, and then after that it stopped. He's fortunate his family can afford to hire one of those therapists, but they can't afford both. And that child at 3 years old, every day that he doesn't receive that therapy falls, a little bit further behind his peers. And so anytime I find out about this, I immediately let the Department of Education know. And a part of my phone call today with the governor is to talk about this, because he did promise, and when he's been issuing all these executive orders, he promised that students with disabilities would still receive their services. They would not be left behind. And as you know, Ray, those are federal funds, and we have an obligation to make sure that these students receive these services and they can be, on par with their peers someday, or as close as they can be with their peers. So that is something I've been working on very hard. I've been receiving a lot of emails about hydroxychloroquine and concerns about that. And yes, in other states have, it's their board of pharmacy. We have a board, all states have a board of pharmacy, and they kind of make decisions about the pharmaceuticals in our state. We don't have restrictions like that on hydroxychloroquine in Tennessee. There are not concerns. I'm told in East Tennessee, doctors, are prescribing it. So if anyone has a concern and that's something that you feel, maybe you've had exposure or you have someone at risk, your loved one should be able to get that. And if there's any trouble, please do call me and let me know, because that might be an individual decision or bias of someone who you're encountering. So, just give me a call, let me know, and we can have the board of medicine or the pharmacy board or whatever make a phone call, and that should be straightened out right quick. So, but with that, let me look at the chat and see if there's any questions here. And so far, do we have any questions here, Mark? I wrote
down a couple that I thought might be of interest to every business. And I know you go back into session, I think on Monday, to give some sort of protection against liability claims with COVID. And I know that is scaring a lot of people, and is kind of an anchor that's weighing down perhaps businesses doing what they need to do to get fully back up and running. Can you share with us a little bit of what the desired outcome is?
I can. In fact, what I did here was I actually pulled up the governor's order, and now I don't see it on my computer. But I had pulled up, this was Monday, he called a special session, and so we will be going back for 3 pieces of legislation. When he calls a special session, it is limited to the items that he has called it for. So one is liability protection for, let's see, it applies to, I have our documents here, and I was also sent the bills so that we can all read them. We really want to get in and get out as quickly as possible. But the liability protections will require a higher standard of care to be established in order to hold a person or entity liable for any loss or damage, injury or death arising from COVID-19. The bill clarifies that the standard is gross negligence. Gross negligence is a very high standard legally, or willful misconduct, which is also a high standard. And it's much higher than simple negligence. Simple negligence would be maybe someone came in your business and they were coughing a little bit and they weren't wearing a mask, but they were coughing and you didn't say, hey, you know, you need to leave or whatever. It would really have to be much more explicit. The bill would apply to any actions against the state, businesses, schools, and institutions of higher education, and it applies the standard to any action or healthcare liability notice filed after August 3rd, 2020, or any lawsuits in process before or occurring before July 1. So because there was intent to pass this legislation, it is going to have some retroactivity to it because it was verbalized that it was the intent of the governor and the General Assembly to pass this legislation. The legislation did not pass in June because some folks had problems with the retroactivity, but because it was an articulated, stated intent, I didn't have a problem with the retroactivity because of that stated intent, and I did vote for it in June. The legislation failed, so we are being called back to now handle that legislation, and I think in discussing things with all parties seem to be fine with it, except, you know, some of the Democrats are not fine with it. You've probably seen Mike Stewart on the local news, and he's not happy about it, but it should pass. Another.
May I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Real quick, what you just said, it failed in the legislature at the end of the session.
It did.
You're going back again. Are you going to try to pass the same piece of legislation, or have there been changes made that make it more broadly acceptable?
Yes, there have been changes made. I was just sent the legislation, so I haven't compared it yet to the former bill that we voted on, but I'll do that over the weekend before I get there on Monday. And it did fail. I think almost all the Democrats, not all of them, but almost all the Democrats voted against it. And some Republicans in the legislature, and they're mainly Republicans who are attorneys, plaintiff attorneys who didn't like the retroactivity, is what they said. But I really do feel that businesses do need this protection. You have no idea at any time if someone coming into your business has a cold, the flu, COVID. You have no idea and you can't know. But as long as you apply the standard protocol at your business, you are not being negligent. You know, if you see someone who's visibly ill, you know, you may want to ask them, you know, are you sure you should be here? It's amazing to me that some people would go out with COVID. It's claimed to me that some people go out with COVID. I don't know. I had to take a COVID test a couple of weeks ago, and I stayed home as soon as I realized we had one person at work who was diagnosed, and I'd been having a sore throat. So I went and took a COVID test, and I stayed inside until I had my test results. I did not go anywhere, and in fact, neither did my husband. Neither one of us went anywhere. We ordered our food. It was dropped off outside our door, all of that. We would never endanger anybody else. So it's amazing to me that anybody might go out with COVID, but some claim that some folks do intentionally go out with COVID. I don't know. I think that's probably anecdotal. I'm not sure. And then another thing that we are going to go back and deal with, as part of the governor's executive orders, he granted an executive order on telemedicine. I don't know if anybody has had an opportunity to use telemedicine while we've been in this COVID situation. But I know that it has been tremendously beneficial and people have really liked it. And I know that anecdotally because here where I work, a lot of the employees have been using telemedicine and they literally just say, hey, I have a telemedicine appointment at, at 2 o'clock, and they go in a room, privacy, and they get on their telemedicine call. So it really has been a wonderful thing. I do think there's some limitations. I have heard about one person who, when they go to their regular doctor's appointment, a blood test is always with that visit because of their health situation. And of course, that's not possible over telemedicine. I don't know if the doctor was still paid the full rate over that, but that is the point of contention. Doctors want to be paid for a standard like a standard visit, like you went into the office. However, we do know that at some time they can't complete a full visit. So that's the point of contention that we're just trying to work out. What will be legally, what they will be legally responsible for. So I do think telemedicine has been really successful, and there's still a need, of course, to go back to see your doctor, absolutely. But there's a lot of visits that can be done with telemedicine. And I don't know if anybody's tried it, but I hope you're liking it.
Well, I hope that's one of those things where we don't let perfection get in the way of excellence, and
Right.
you can get 80% of it done. I know that's something that's been talked about, and this is sort of a forced opportunity that may turn out to be something positive as an unintended consequence of quarantine and COVID and closing of doctor's office and all that stuff. So you said there's a third thing then as well, besides the liability and the telemedicine.
Right. The third thing is probably a little bit more controversial. It has to do with protesters and the statues and them attacking the statues and knocking them down and knocking them over. And I say it's more controversial with probably, the folks who are supporting all of the protesting that's been going on. This protest, it's fine if it's a peaceful protest, but when it turns into destruction of property and then even a step further, a riot, that's absolutely wrong. And we do have laws now about that, but our law needs some clarification. The law was written, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, these groups were meeting at the state capitol, and it was something about Wall Street. It was what were they calling it? I don't remember. It was, but they were camping out, literally camping out on the Capitol grounds, and boy, was it becoming a mess. It was terrible. And at times they did get a little threatening. So we would pass some laws then just to put some guardrails around that and keep things under control. Because, a lot of tourists visit our state capitol, and people just are working and walking between buildings, and they walk through the Capitol complex because it's a shortcut and it's pretty, it's beautiful. And so we needed to put guardrails around that. And it turns out that we need more clarification because the law hasn't been interpreted quite as intended in Nashville and maybe some other places. And so we are going to make sure that it is interpreted exactly as it was meant. So
I think
guardrails.
When you take the politics out of it, right or wrong, everybody's got an opinion, but removing a statue or a bust from inside the state capitol through legislation seems to be a better way to do it than just going out and destroying things. But thank you for what you're doing for civility and giving everybody a voice no matter how they feel. So times are changing, that's for sure. So can I ask you a quick question a little bit closer to home for all of us? Last week, a week ago Monday, kind of gave you a nod for a pretty significant development around the Central Pike interchange, something that we have been championing out there, the interchange, not necessarily that development, for probably at least 15 years. I don't know, badly needed. can you share with us the impact of the Improve Act, what that's done for projects like that, and what luring a large employer or a corporate headquarters might mean in the opinion of TDOT when it comes to prioritizing funding and construction of a project like that?
Right. Absolutely. In fact, what I did, because I knew I was going to be on this call yesterday, was I called Paul Deggs and I said, hey, Paul, can you just give me an update on the Central Pike interchange? And he said, you know what, let me email that to you, because he actually, you know, has folks who oversee those things. So here's what he wrote me. The scope of the work at I-40, the interchange, and Central Pike, the scope of the work is a new diverging diamond interchange at I-40 and Central Pike. The interchange justification study is complete and has been approved by the feds in Washington, the Federal Highway Administration. The project is budgeted for preliminary engineering in the FY20 work program. So that means it's going on right now. TDOT has procured a consultant engineering firm, and it's HDR Incorporated, if you know of any of the firms, to design the project, and the survey and design activities are in the early stages of development. The estimated cost to completion is $20,900,000. And then also, there's a second project with that, and that is expanding Central Pike. You know, as roads improve around, boy, sometimes you ride on a road you're used to riding on all the time, like Central Pike, and you say, gosh, this road, it seems a little bit more scary now. It's kind of feels narrow and all that. Yeah, because we have sort of upped the standards on our roads, and Central Pike definitely needs to be improved. So it will be improved between Old Hickory Boulevard and southbound Juliet Road. And that is a $68.2 million project. And so the scope of the work is to widen that 5.4 mile stretch to 5 lanes. And the project is budgeted right now for environmental studies and FY20 work program. So that is going on right now. So those environmental studies are currently underway. Projects like this, as you know, do take a long time. These both were projects included in the Improve Act. When the Improve Act passed, it contained about 9 or 10 projects solely for Wilson County. And those projects are underway right now. As you know, 109 is 2 different projects. We've got the widenings going on in I-40. There's 2 different projects there. And then there's way out in the east end of the county, Hartsville Pike. I don't know if you ever traveled that, but that really needed to be improved. It's getting very dangerous, a lot of head-on collisions. And so then also these 2 projects are in there. A project for southbound Juliet Road is in there. A project up at Kangaroo Market and Bender's Ferry is also in there. And TDOT is you know, accomplishing these projects. I have the tax revenues, and, you know, of course, with COVID, people are not traveling as much, so our sales tax revenue or our gas tax revenue is down. I like to say to people, my gosh, I'm getting months per gallon on my car because I'm not driving as much, and rather than miles per gallon. And everybody's experiencing that. I was talking to a Mount Juliet City Commissioner. He told me he's saving $70 a month. And that's a big chunk of change for the family budget because he's working from home and he's not having to travel into the office every day. But we are down, and our motor fuel tax is down just 0.3%, but the petroleum tax is down 15%. Vehicle registrations were down 2%. Remember, they let everybody wait to register their car. And then the vehicle titles are down 14%. And then we also have the gas and oil severance tax, and that was actually up 1.5%. And these different taxes just apply to different things. So revenues are a little bit down. I haven't heard about TDOT though putting any projects on ice. Hopefully not. We're really looking to President Trump. He is so wanting to just champion a huge infrastructure bill, and I'm sure Congressman Rose has talked about that. And boy, would that be great for our area. We know that we get so many things done that we need. I hear from people all the time who bring up projects that aren't on this list. They're not on the program list yet. And yeah, these projects are very expensive. They use commodities, and commodities are, you know, we're using steel, we're using oil, asphalt, and these commodities, you know, go up and down in the market all the time. And so it can it can take a long time to get these projects done. And then naturally, when you're designing a road, you're affecting so many property owners and working those things out with those property owners. Sometimes they go to court, that'll delay a project. It's really their goal to make things go as smooth as possible so they don't end up in court. But TDOT, if TDOT doesn't own all of the land that's needed to widen a road, if they don't own all of the parcels, they are not going to start building and build into a little zone, and because they're in court on that one spot. Everything has to be settled before they start building. And so, you know, having things go smoothly and working things out before it gets to a point of going to court is phenomenally important. And community buy-in is extremely important. And I know our community really wants these projects. There might be an individual landowner who doesn't feel like he's getting enough to put a highway in front of his house. I wouldn't either. But these projects are very important for the safety and future of our community.
Very good. Maybe we'll get I saw where President Trump's setting aside almost $10 billion for our national parks over the next 5 years. So maybe bridges and roads and tunnels and airports are next, I hope.
Right. I think we only have, don't we, Ray, don't we only have one, do we have one national park in Tennessee? I'm not even sure. I think we just have national interests. Most of our parks in Tennessee are state parks, so we probably won't benefit from any of that funding, but I did see that too.
You know, if you can only have one national park, you might as well have the most visited one in the United States in the Smoky Mountains. So
yeah. Yes, that's it. The part of the Smoky Mountains, that's it. And then other than that, the entire state, there's no other national parks.
But there's, I think, 58 state parks, and they're beautiful. So get out and see them. Does anybody have any questions for Representative Lynn before we wrap things up? I want to thank.
There's one in the chat, Mark.
Is there? I don't. She said there's one in the chat.
Susan, it was for me. Can you give everybody, I'm always praising your weekly, and then it turned into a daily email with what's going on at state legislature. Could you share how to sign up for your email? That's just a phenomenal email that you push out, and I thank you for doing that. I thought you might want to share that with everyone.
Oh, great. Absolutely. Yeah. And I hope that's not, I've heard a lot of people say, thank you so much for sending out all this information every day, because I try not to bother people. I will send out a weekly wrap during session once a week, and out of session, I don't send it out too much because I know we all get, you know, an abundance of email. But with the COVID crisis, I thought it was really important to update people every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, because things are changing so rapidly. But please either call the office, 615-741-7462, or message me on Facebook. You can email me at the legislature, just Google my name, and it should come right up. And the email address at the legislature is terrible. It's rep.susan.lynn@capital.tn.gov. Terrible email address. I think it cuts down on a lot of our email. It's so terrible. But just email me and let me know, and we'll put you right on there, and you'll start getting the newsletter. But Ray, thanks for bringing that up, because I don't like holding information. I like to empower you by giving you information, and then you don't have to sit there and wonder. You're empowered, and then you can share it with other people.
Very good. And that session starts Monday. I hope things go Well, the less time you have to spend down there, probably the better for everybody.
That's the way we think of it. Mhm.
I want to thank Ray as well. I know he's been a true advocate for getting the census done. Got a note from the county mayor's office this morning that a particularly an area of town, District 4 really, specifically the apartments and Belinda Parkway on the census are much lower than the county average. So if you want to put a plug in, they're winding that up. So if you haven't filled out the census, it's easy to do. 2 minutes online. They don't ask for any more information than you give every day on Facebook. So please fill out the census form. Ray, thanks for bird dogging for us and for chambers all over Tennessee for getting the 501c6s at least get our name in the hat for the PPP. We have a call with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on Thursday afternoon this week. I know there's a lot of advocates for it, hoping in the next go round that the pie is divided up a little bit more equally, but thank you for what you're doing. It'll be what it is, but at least we've had a voice, and for that we're grateful. If there's no other chat questions. Susan, your morning break is over. Thanks for pulling yourself away from your job, your paying job, to spend some time with us. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help you getting ready for Monday. Michael, thank you for always being there as well, and for your support of the chamber. And everybody else, it's always great to see you, even if it's just a little 1 inch by 1 inch picture of you. Don't hesitate to call the chamber if we can do anything for you either. So with that, everybody have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.